After my rebirth, I handed in my resignation, left the production department, and broke ties with the Knight family who had raised me. I became known as an ungrateful traitor, all because, in my previous life, Chloe Davis, the supposed gifted musician and the apple of Mason Knight's eye, the CEO's only son, died in an accident during a signing selection, and I married him, becoming Mrs. Knight's daughter-in-law. After our marriage, Mason and I worked side by side for 20 years, weathering every storm. I composed hit songs, he sang them to life, and Stellar Entertainment's entire 50-year backlog of unsold albums became phenomenal successes under our touch. But Mason Knight, my supposed soulmate, publicly exposed me at my own awards ceremony, accusing me of fraud and deception. He claimed all the key arrangements in my award-winning albums, the very ones that earned me recognition, were based on manuscripts Chloe Davis had recorded with her innate musicality. Before her death, Scarlett Hayes, you stole the life that rightfully belonged to Chloe Davis. Even my own students, whom I'd personally mentored, looked at me with open disdain. Teacher, I never thought a top-tier producer like you would rely on plagiarism to get to the top. As I saw their scornful gazes, I collapsed right outside Stellar Entertainment's doors. Every single one of my works was rigorously investigated. Mason dug into my every oversight, leading to my imprisonment for plagiarism and copyright infringement. Behind bars, I was relentlessly attacked online by inmates who held grudges against me, and I eventually took my own life out of despair. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at Stellar Entertainment. On the day they were deciding producers for a new album, Mr. Knight sat in his office, his expression heavy. Mason, for this new album, who should we pick as producer, Scarlett or Chloe? Colleagues around us chuckled. Is that even a question? Mason and Scarlett are childhood sweethearts. Who else would he pick? I had grown up in the Knight family, and they had long since unofficially decided I would be their daughter-in-law. The position of producer for this new album was naturally assumed to be mine, but this time Mason Knight abruptly interrupted his father. Dad, let's keep personal matters separate. Selecting a producer should be fair. I shouldn't be making that decision. It clicked instantly. He had been reborn too. Since he was so fixated on his unrequited love for Chloe Davis last time, I decided this time I'd make sure they got their happy ending. Mr. Knight, I honestly don't think my abilities are sufficient. I'm not a good match for Mason, nor do I think I belong in the core production team. I grabbed a blank sheet of paper and swiftly wrote out the words resignation letter. Seeing my actions, Mason Knight didn't say a word. He just turned and bolted from the office. At this exact time in my last life, Chloe Davis had been cornered by furious haters who didn't want her signed. In the chaos, a deranged hater injured her wrist, making it impossible for her to hold a microphone again. Now that he had a second chance, he was clearly going to protect Chloe from that fate. Mr. Knight exploded in fury, pushing my resignation letter back across the desk. Scarlett Hayes, what nonsense is this? I taught you everything you know, and now you want to resign? Mr. Knight, who had raised me like his own daughter, now looked at me with utter disappointment. I met his gaze, wanting to explain, but in the end I simply bowed deeply. Mr. Knight, I'm truly sorry. I'll leave the Knight family. I'll find a way to repay your kindness in the future. Mason's heart belongs to someone else. You can't force love. Mr. Knight, please let them be together. Mason and I are simply not meant to be. Mr. Knight wanted to argue, but then he remembered the rumors he'd heard about his son and Chloe Davis. He swallowed all his words. I packed my belongings and moved out of the Knight household for good. The day I left, Mason Knight stood in the yard, casting a distant glance in my direction. 20 years of shared history from our last life had ended here. Once I finished handing over my work at Stellar Entertainment, I wouldn't have to see them again. News of their signing and engagement spread throughout Stellar Entertainment. Red, eye-catching contracts were laid out on every colleague's desk. People in the hallway constantly snuck glances at me, whispering. Everyone knew I had chased Mason Knight for over a decade, from a shy girl to a seasoned producer. They all thought I'd be the one walking down the aisle, but I simply gave the gilded contracts a dismissive glance and returned to my composition report. Chloe Davis often spoke loudly in the recording studio these days, deliberately raising her voice as if afraid no one would hear her. Mason bought me another necklace yesterday. He said it's to match my debut outfit. He also said once we're done with promotions, he'll let me take on bigger projects. I ignored her boasting, focusing intently on my composition report. Until that day, I overheard Mason Knight and Mr. Knight arguing in the CEO's office. Dad, Chloe should be in charge of the new album. You've seen her capabilities. Mr. Knight's voice was displeased. Mason, Scarlett has been working on this album for a long time. Replacing her now would cause problems. Besides, Chloe just signed. She doesn't have enough experience. Mason Knight was insistent. But Chloe has her unique talent. She can do this album. Dad, you can't just favor Scarlett because of personal feelings, can you? I clearly remembered that in my previous life I had used subtle clues in the composition to piece together the album's entire structure, ultimately producing a citywide sensation. Stellar Entertainment earned major accolades because of it, and I became famous overnight with that album. The title of top producer echoed through the entertainment industry, and my career skyrocketed. Mason Knight, having been reborn, surely knew all of this. He simply wanted Chloe Davis to gain fame through this project in this life. With that thought, I pushed open the office door and handed over all my composition documents. Mr. Knight, here are all the materials and reports. Mr. Knight looked at my calm demeanor, his eyes unreadable. After much hesitation, he took the reports from my hand. Scarlett, it's Mr. Knight and the Knight family who owe you an apology. My voice was calm. It's all right, Mr. Knight, you raised me, so consider this my way of repaying your kindness. Mr. Knight looked up, his eyes filled with guilt. He had nurtured me like a daughter for many years, but ultimately, I couldn't compare to his own son. The scale still tipped in Mason Knight's favor. The moment I voluntarily handed over the reports, a flicker of obvious shock crossed Mason Knight's face. He probably expected me to argue, maybe even cry hysterically, but I had been surprisingly decisive. These documents were the result of countless sleepless nights, each page filled with my hard work and professional judgment. He clearly hadn't expected me to let go so easily. Scarlett Hayes, don't think this reverse psychology will get my attention. Mason Knight quickly regained his cold expression, his tone dripping with disdain. You'll never measure up to Chloe. You should have realized that a long time ago, right? He always believed in Chloe Davis's casually mentioned innate musicality. To my dying day, I never knew what he'd written in his notebook that made him so certain I'd only succeeded by riding on Chloe Davis's coattails. Mason Knight, standing before me, shoved the thick reports into Chloe Davis's hands. Chloe took the documents, eager to flip through them, but her face grew increasingly distraught with each page she read. Mason, why are there only records of the composition process and no final product?" she asked. Somewhat flustered, I let out a soft laugh, a hint of sarcasm in my voice. "The finished product, that shouldn't be a problem for Chloe, right? Especially with your unique talent." Picking up on the sarcasm, Mason Knight and Chloe Davis both snorted and turned to leave the office. I watched them go, shaking my head with a smile. Chloe Davis was nothing but a rookie who had never even done an independent composition. How could she possibly analyze complex clues and draw conclusions? I was eager to see how Mason Knight would elevate his beloved to fame at the new album recording studio. Just as I expected, Chloe Davis made a fool of herself in front of everyone. "Ms. Davis, could you please hand me the mixer?" But Chloe Davis picked up a metronome and handed it to my old partner, Gary. "Not that one, Ms. Davis. You can't even tell the difference between a mixer and a metronome. That's basic stuff." Chloe Davis's voice, full of grievance, piped up. I'm just not very familiar with the equipment here." Mason Knight's voice immediately cut in, full of protective indignation. "Gary, do you have to be so aggressive? Chloe just started. You were all Scarlett Hayes' old colleagues, so naturally you're biased towards her. You haven't even seen Chloe's real capabilities." Gary scoffed, as if he'd heard the biggest joke. "Capabilities? What capabilities is Mr. Knight saying? She can produce music with some fake talent, innate musicality. I'll believe it when she brings a deceased artist back to sing a few notes." Several other producers began whispering, skepticism etched on their faces. Seeing the tension escalate, I pushed open the door and calmly interrupted them. "Gary, I'm just here to pack my things." The office instantly fell silent, all eyes on me. I packed my desk items one by one. Chloe Davis, standing beside me, looked increasingly upset. When I picked up a photo of me with the Knight family, she lunged and knocked over my box. "Scarlett Hayes, are you gloating?" Now, the cardboard box crashed to the floor with a loud bang, and the only photo of me with the Knight family shattered into pieces. The piano model Mason Knight had given me for my 18th birthday was also smashed to smithereens. The sharp edge of the box cut Chloe Davis's finger, and blood immediately welled up. Mason Kn.